Hello, everyone. Welcome to day one of the Leap for Success Virtual Summit. I am so excited to be with one of our presenters today. That's Dr. Melissa Tranquille. Dr. Tranquille, welcome.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. And before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Dr. Tranquille with you. She's a motivational life coach and founder of Peak Living with Mel. She has over 15 years of combined professional experience in the management and education sector. She is qualified in human resources. She's also a certified group life coach, that's Goal to Success coach, and a life purpose workshop facilitator. Dr. Tranquille is passionate about helping entrepreneurs and professionals become unstuck so they can be empowered for success. You can connect with her on Facebook at her business page, Peak Living with Mel. She's also on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Now, here's a little piece of information about her personally. When she's not working, she's mothering her 4 kids. Yes, 4. Just look at that smiling face. She has 4 kids. She's spending cozy time with her hubby and squeezing in time for Insanity with Sean T. You got to ask her about that. And I will, at the end of our session to get her presentation, I'll allow Dr. Tranquille to give you her personal connection, how you can connect with her if you'd like to get more information. So, Dr. Tranquille, before we start, I'd love to ask you to please share with us a little bit about your story. What led you to the point where you are today?
Yes, thank you, Yvonne. I'm humbled by that introduction. Thank you. And welcome to all of listeners or viewers. Well, I come from a multicultural background. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I lived in St. Lucia. I lived in Paris for almost a decade, spent some time in Martinique, and I'm now here in England. And like Yvonne mentioned, I have 15 years of combined years of management experience and also working in the education sector as a teacher. And you see, there came a point of time in my life where, before I even mention that, I should say at this point, you will know what my topic is shortly. And I should mention this because of what my topic is about. Right now in my life, I believe that I'm successful because of the achievements that I have attained. They fit my definition of success. And my definition of success is one where it is a holistic approach. So my achievements, I'm married, I have 4 kids, I'm self-employed, working from home, and I achieved my doctorate whilst I had my 4 kids, working for 4 of those years. So there came a time after I completed my doctoral degree that I didn't want to sacrifice my children. And I had to find a way to be there for my kids, but yet still do something that I love and I'm passionate about. Now, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Just to give you just a little bit of history, I met my husband when I was 20 years old. And at that age, one of the things we had done together early in our relationship was formulated a business plan. We wanted to start an elderly care home. We were living in St. Lucia at the time. But when we studied the environment while working on the business plan and performing the pestle analysis, etc., it wasn't conducive because of the culture over there. Then when we were in Paris, we wanted to start a bilingual school. But the funds we had was either the bilingual school in one hand or do our degrees in the other hand. And because the kids were so young, we decided, well, okay, they're still young, let's do this. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And then when I found myself finally graduated and I had my 4 kids and I have a family, and for me, family is very important, I reflected a bit. And when I searched myself, I discovered that I've always helped persons, whether it's with their assignments or their thesis. I've volunteered through counseling. I've always had that spirit in me to help others, to contribute to changing people's lives. And this is how Peak Living with Mel came about. Peak Living with Mel came about so that I can help entrepreneurs and professionals who are stuck in life to become unstuck so they can achieve any goal in life. And they do that by following a personalized plan so they can become empowered for success.
Wow. You know, I can just hear, and our listeners can hear, and viewers can hear the passion in your voice.
Thank you,
And what I
Yvonne.
love about what you just said was that you have achieved success, because success is determined by us. It's what it is that we want it to represent.
That's right.
And there are levels of it, and you have definitely achieved certain levels. And so that takes
Thank you.
us, you're very welcome. That takes us right into your presentation today, and the topic of which is success principles that every entrepreneur or professional needs.
Yes.
So
Thank you,
please
Yvonne.
take it away.
Yes. Now, you see, what I've discovered is that entrepreneurs, coaches, they struggle with their goals and they have so many things holding them back. And it takes them quite a while to realize that the things that are holding them back are impacting the results that they are getting in life. And quite often, those things that are holding them back, I'm not talking about the technical things that we're unable to do, but I'm talking about things that may seem intangible, but yet still impact upon our tangible results. So what I want to address today is two top principles that every entrepreneur or professional needs. And these principles have been shared by CEOs, by Napoleon Hill, by Andrew Carnegie, by sports celebrities, and by many persons who have attained success. But before I start with those principles, I want to ask our listeners something today. I want to ask all of our listeners, what does success look like to you? Because many people characterize, like Yvonne just mentioned, many people characterize or define success based upon a comparison test. You know, they compare themselves with others in society to determine whether they're successful or not. And that really is the premise of the social comparison theory. And the disadvantage of that approach is that you never will be truly happy or satisfied. You will always need to pursue more and more and more in order to live up to what I called the success barometer. So it's therefore very important to know what success looks like to you. Now, I want to give you three things to consider to discover what success looks like to you before I even share my two principles. And one of those first things is our core values. You see, our core values are those things that are most important to us. They're like your emotional drivers, so to speak. Family, respect, relationship, integrity, honesty, power, influence, all these are our core values. Now, what does our core values have to do with success? Let me give you an example. Imagine this CEO. Well, not a CEO, but he's a manager at a company. And he was offered the position of CEO. And he declined it. And his peers cannot understand, why would you decline such a great opportunity? You know, all the perks and the prestige and the opportunities that goes with it. And his friends are so puzzled now at his response. Because guess what his response is? It will keep me away from my family. And this is because family is an important core value for him. And he would accept a promotion that caters to that. You know, just yesterday I was watching a video from Boss Free Summit, and there was a coach being interviewed, and I can't recall his name. And he said that he and his wife right now have a Facebook group together on marriage. And he feels successful because he and his wife, they're in business together. But why he feels so successful and have that pride of achievement is because he is able to work from home and be there for his family and be there for his children, because family is his core value. And that's why that's why it is one of the first things to consider to determine what success looks like to you. Another thing to consider is try to identify moments when you felt successful. Reflect on it. Where were you? What did you achieve? Who were you with? How did you feel? What is it that you achieve in those moments that you can reflect upon right now where you felt successful? Who were you with? And this will give you a picture of your version of success. And the last thing I want you to consider, now we could consider many other things, but I'm giving you three simple things you could consider to first identify what success looks like to you. And the last thing is, what do you really want? You know, the unfortunate thing is that many people, many persons are living their life without trying to figure out what is it they really want in life. Another thing too, let me add, is that many persons, they're living their life trying to obtain or achieve somebody else's dream. So the goals that you have are not goals that you own, OWN. Do you own that goal? Is that something you really want? Or are you living up to your mother's expectation or your grandmother's expectation? With all due respect to them, what do you really want? And the outcomes that you want in life, you have to ensure that it's aligned now with your core values. You know, Napoleon Hill says, the author of Think and Grow Rich, a burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. That's the starting point. What is your burning desire? What is it you really want to achieve with your life as an entrepreneur, as a professional, in your personal life, your life vision? What do you want to achieve? And when you put these three things together, you will come up with a picture as to what success looks like to you.
Wow, that's powerful.
Thank you,
And I can
Yvonne.
see why this, your passion, why you really wanted to talk
Yes,
on this topic, because it's so important. You said something that struck me immediately when you started out with these thoughts to ponder on. And that was
yes,
one of the factors that a lot of times we measure success by comparing how we're doing to other people, when in
yes.
reality, their values may be totally different from ours,
You're
right? And then
absolutely right. Mm-hmm,
you asked us to reflect on a moment that
mm-hmm,
we felt successful. What did
mm-hmm,
it mean
mm-hmm,
for us? What
mm-hmm,
did it feel like?
mm-hmm.
And then you asked another question, is that what do you really want? So many times we are living somebody else's dream. It's
That's
not
true.
ours.
That's
And
true.
so those are really 3 points that we have to reflect on, and I can see why you choose to speak on this topic. So now you're going to go into your principles and would love to hear them.
Thank you, Yvonne. Sure. You know, and I could talk a lot more on other principles, but due to the time constraint, I will only be addressing two principles today: discipline and faith. And in talking about discipline, I want to talk about disciplined mind and disciplined habits. Now, disciplined mind. The thing is, our mind is the house of our beliefs, our fears, our self talk, our habits, our automatic thoughts, whether they're positive or negative, our enthusiasm, our consciousness, our unconsciousness, our emotions, and the list goes on. And what goes on in our mind, how we think about things, the experiences, how we interpret those experiences, the training we've gotten, all this has shaped our mindset. And what I want to say to our listeners today, to entrepreneurs, to professionals, and even to persons who are interested in their own personal growth and development, the first thing you need to work on before you can even think about having success is your mind. Build your resilience, build your confidence, build your courage. You know, Calvin Helen says that the first step to adopt and maintain an empowerment mindset is to recognize the forces of personal self-sabotage and learn how to counter them. Because the truth is, we as entrepreneurs and as coaches, as professionals, and even in our own personal life, we continuously self-sabotage ourselves and we don't realize it. Whether it's through procrastination, whether it's through perfectionism, whether it's through our negative self-talk, whether it's through our comfort eating, we are continuously self-sabotaging ourselves without realizing it. So it's very, very important right now. Make the decision right now that you're going to take an inventory of what's the state of your mind. You know, I want to share another story by Romala Reddy and Kate Button. And they shared a story of a 12-year-old boy who emigrated to Australia. And he was asked by his new school teacher, "Don't you find the people here to be quite prejudiced?" And do you know what his response was? His response was, "Prejudice? Not at all. I'm too excited trying to adjust to my new life here that I don't even have time to look for prejudice." You see, and the point of my story, we could take away several things from that story. But the point of my story is his mind was focused on the outcome that he wants, which is to adjust well to his new life. So what I want to say is my message is take responsibility. I'm asking all of my listeners, our listeners today, take responsibility for what goes on inside of your head and do not allow your emotions to empower you. Now, when we talk about disciplining our mind, we're talking about managing our thoughts, managing our self-talk, managing our belief system. And I can't go into all of that right now because of our time constraints. But let me just touch on our thoughts. And I'm sure many of you have heard of experts who have said that our mind processes 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Some say it's a bit less, about 50,000 thoughts, which is about 2,100 thoughts per hour. So imagine if we fail to learn to discipline our mind. Imagine the chaos that we would have. So it's quite beneficial to take the steps that you need to take to discipline your mind.
Those are really great points. But at this point, I'm loving what you're saying about the mind, disciplining the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said about take responsibility for what goes on inside your head. Profound.
Mm-hmm.
So would you please share with us, Melissa, what are some of the benefits of a disciplined mind? You touched on some, but can you go just a little bit deeper on that for us?
Thank you, Yvonne. Yes, so some of the benefits of disciplining your mind is that you develop a strong self-discipline. Self-discipline where you become focused, you know what you have to do, and you're able to eliminate your distractions and focus and do what you have to do. Another thing is that you have a boost of confidence. You become more resilient. You adopt better habits because your mind is disciplined. No, it's not that you wouldn't have bad habits. We all have bad habits. We all have poor habits that we need to change. There's no exception. But what happens is that because you have made the conscious decision that you want to discipline your mind and it's something you work on every day, then you will be able to automatically identify times when that ugly habit is rearing its ugly head. And then you can put a stop and make the decision in that shift in the moment in your mind to not do what that habit that you have wants you to fall into. So you'll be able to recognize your bad habits easier. And of course, you'll be able to live a more fulfilled life. And what I want to emphasize to our listeners today is that if you discipline your mind, you can use that mind of yours to get you the success that you desire. What do you desire? Do you desire happy marriage? Do you desire thriving business? Do you desire freedom lifestyle? Do you desire healthier you, a more balanced life? What is it that you truly desire? You know, Andrew Carnegie, he said that our greatest weakness is our failure to take possession of our minds and use them. And that quote, you know, it sticks with me. Our greatest weakness, I just have to repeat it, is our failure to take possession of our minds and use it. So I urge you, our listeners, right now, make that decision to take possession of your mind and begin to use that mind of yours to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Now, I want to talk about discipline habits because we're talking about discipline, and the two things we're focusing on is the disciplined mind and the disciplined habits. Now, we all know what habits are. It's those things we do every day. It becomes second nature to us, and it has become our unconscious behavior. And sometimes we're so busy banging our heads that we don't even realize the bad habits that we've picked up along the way. Some bad habits, procrastination is a bad habit. Leaving like your deep work to be done last. There are some persons who they do the easy task first and they leave the deep work for 9 o'clock in the night when they're tired, and it's a habit. They do it all the time, and then they're unable to give their fullest concentration, apply themselves to the best of their ability to perform that task, you know, the way that they ought to, because they're tired and it has become a habit. Or taking social calls during work, or interrupting your work to go on social media. You know, these things have become a habit. You're at your desk working, and each time you hear a notification, you're on the phone. These things have become a habit. Now, if you have bad habits, I'm not saying this right now for you to feel bad, because like I mentioned, we have bad habits. But it's a matter of honesty is the first step to change. Recognizing the bad habit that you need to change, that habit in particular that is hindering you from achieving your goal. You know, I want to ask our listeners, have you ever noticed in life that sometimes you keep making the same mistakes or you have the same response every time to a certain situation? And that's because you've adopted a bad habit. And these bad habits have become so ingrained in our psyche and embedded in our subconscious mind that it takes real effort to change them. So what's the solution? Make a conscious decision to change that habit. And what I propose to our listeners, Yvonne, what I propose to our listeners is to get a journal. Draw up a table if you want to, or if you don't want to journal it, and just monitor your habits over the next 7 days. No, you have to, because you're making the decision to monitor your habits, you will find yourself, I like to say, you will catch yourself. You will catch yourself, so to speak, when you've executed that habit. When you've, okay, I just, I'm working on this task now and I went onto social media. Oops, let me write that down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every time that you notice that you fall into that particular habit, jot it down. And even write down when you feel highs, your highs during the day or during the week, times when you feel excited and enthusiastic. What do? Write that down. Times when you feel down during the week or depressed, what do you do? One of my bad habits when I wanted to lose weight years ago, sometimes I start to talk too quickly, forgive me, is that when I felt down, I went into comfort eating. I'll turn to the chocolates, and that was my bad habit. And then I would wonder, why wasn't I losing the weight? Until I had to catch myself, so to speak, and recognize that it was a bad habit I had to get rid of. So I'm asking our listeners, Yvonne, to closely introspect themselves and pay attention to what they're doing in their everyday life so they can recognize those habits that are hindering them from achieving their goals. Yes.
Wow, powerful.
Thank you. And the last principle, because I know we have our time constraints.
That's okay. We're good. We're good.
Thank you. That every entrepreneur professional needs is faith. And I want to talk about two things when I speak of faith. I want to talk about belief, but I also want to address failure. Now, we all are aware how our beliefs are formed. Our beliefs were formed from our childhood experiences, persons of influence in our life, teachers, religious leaders. But you know what? Some things that we don't consider, even criticisms that we received and we accepted as true, has also impacted and helped shape our beliefs. Whether it's criticisms that you receive from since childhood, or you will never amount to anything, or you're just so dumb, you're so stupid. And we've accepted those criticisms as true. And these two have contributed to shaping our beliefs. And the truth of the matter is, all of us have empowering and disempowering beliefs. Even I do. Now, your empowering beliefs, they give you strength. Like I always say, I love challenges because I learned something new. That's an empowering belief. But a disempowering belief, it totally brings you down. Some people might say, I never seem to get ahead in life. It's a disempowering belief. It will bring you down. It will leave you with negative emotions. And one thing I've found is, and even in my entrepreneurial journey, something too that I'm trying to be more consistent with, is that sometimes as entrepreneurs or professionals, or even in our personal life, we feel successful one day, and then the other 3 days we think failure. One day you feel successful and you have all those empowering thoughts and empowering beliefs, and the next 3 days we think those disempowering beliefs, or we think those failing thoughts. Or sometimes we don't even think it ourselves, but the negative automatic thoughts, the negative inner critic surfaces, and then we think it, we accept that thought. And you know what? If you think it and then you speak it, and you speak it long enough, it becomes a belief, and it becomes a limiting belief. And what happens when you have those limiting beliefs? They block your success. How it blocks your success is that you won't even see opportunities when they're presented to you, because your limiting beliefs will block your success. You can't do that. Come on, you can never achieve that, or you can't learn that, or you're not good with technology and all those things, or you're too old, or you're too young. You will not recognize your opportunities when they're presented to you. You will be overcome by fear. Oh, you can't put yourself on video. You don't look good on video. Oh, what about the sound of your voice? And I had to work on that. I can recall before I started my very first video last year on Facebook, I went through what I called a traumatic event. Yvonne, in my mind, this was something all occurring in my mind. In my mind, I hated the sound of my voice, although my husband said he loved my voice. And it was one of the things he said when we met, and he loved on the phone the sound of my voice, but I hated the sound of my voice. And do you know what I had to do? I had to get rid of that limiting beliefs. And I deliberately recorded my voice on my phone. I'm going for a walk. And even one day we were playing photos on the television. We were playing back some photos and the video popped up and everyone is like, "What's that, Melissa? What's that, mommy?" I said, "Oh, that's a video of me recording myself." It sounded really horrible because I'm brisk walking, and I'm recording myself, pretending I'm doing a video before I ever went on my first video, because I had to get rid of the limiting beliefs. I had to overcome it. And the thing is, and I know we have time constraints, but the thing is, sometimes we don't even recognize when it's a limiting belief.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at the sound of your voice. That's a limiting belief. It's a limiting belief. Why? Because it's hindering you from success. It's hindering you from progress. So, and even beliefs that we have about other people can hinder the relationship that we will have with them. And as a consequence, you will struggle to build meaningful relationship with others. So I want to encourage our listeners today, Yvonne, to make an effort to change your limiting beliefs or any disempowering beliefs that you have. And I want to give you a simple exercise to do so. Right now, I want you to recall a limiting belief that you have. And sometimes you can identify a few of them quite easily. Why? Because it's always there. And it always pops up at the wrong time. And when you think of that limiting belief, what picture comes to your mind? Now, I want you to identify any evidence, whether to determine if that belief is true or not. For example, you might be a coach and you say, "People don't like me," but yet you have raving testimonials from clients. Or you're a professional and you're job seeking and you said, "Things will never work out for me." But yet when you reflect, you realize you've gotten some great career opportunities in your life. And now what I want you to do is replace that limiting belief with a belief that you would like to have instead, and put a picture in your mind, because a picture becomes associated in your mind with that belief. And make sure you state that belief in positive terms. And finally, let's move on to failure. And if we're talking about success principles that every entrepreneur professional needs, we have to talk about failure. Because the truth of the matter is, not everything that we do will be successful. We all have experienced failure at some point of time in our life. But how do we deal with that failure? So I want to ask our listeners today, Yvonne, what is their perception of failure? How do you perceive failure? Because your perception of failure will influence your response to it. I'll give you an example from my childhood. I remember when I was going to secondary school. I was an A student, not boasting, it's just the truth. I was a hardworking student. But for some reason, I did the science subjects and I chose only one business subject because I love sciences. And I don't know, for some reason, I was struggling with the business subject, but I know why now, because I had a block in my mind. I used to say I like sciences and I don't like business, but I never even did the business subject before. So how could I say I don't like business? So because of that thought, it had already placed a block in my mind and I struggled with it. And when we had mock GCSE exams, I got a 40%, I failed. And I cried and cried and cried and cried. because I'd never failed before. I really cried. But then you know what I did afterwards? I took my textbook, because the system back then, I was living in the Caribbean. It's not like up here. It's completely different, the educational system. And I think, Yvonne, you might know a bit about that. They
Oh, yeah.
really focus on academic. And you have a
Mhm.
bag full of books going to school with. And I
Mhm.
took my textbook and I studied that textbook twice. And I got a distinction in that subject. Why did I bring that story? Because how you perceive failure will determine your response to it. Now, at times it might get you down on the spur of the moment because it's not the response you expected. But then what do you do next? So you have to have, and I want to emphasize this to our listeners today, you have to have a pre-formulated way to deal with failure when it serves its head. Have a pre-formulated way to deal with failure. Because if not, it will crush you and you will just put your business on the side. Or you might walk off of that job. Or you might not complete your degree program. Or you might never even attempt to have a child again. Or you might never even love someone else again. You have to have a pre-formulated way of how you're going to deal with failure. And here's what I want to say to all listeners right now, Yvonne. Imagine that, imagine if you were to perceive failure as feedback. You know, there's a presupposition in NLP. There's no failure, only feedback. Now, if you think this way, pause for a moment. And if you think this way, there's no failure, only feedback. Would you have limiting beliefs? Would you be critical of yourself? And when you make mistakes, how would you react to it? And even with your interaction with others, would you be more understanding and more compassionate, more encouraging and less critical? You know, because there's no failure, only feedback. So I want to leave our listeners right now with 5 essential points from everything that I've said. I know I've said a mouthful, quite a bit. Number 1, know what success looks like to you. And make sure it's aligned with your core values. Number 2, be clear on the outcomes that you want in life. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a professional, and even in your personal life. If you remember what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I feel successful because I have my family, because I'm married, because I'm qualified, because I'm working on my business from home. What does success looks like to you? Be clear on the outcomes you want in your life. And number 3, discipline your mind and do not allow your emotions to take control over you. Do not allow your habits to dictate your outcomes, because your habits can dictate your outcomes. The bad habits can dictate the outcomes that you're getting in your life. Number 4, finally, change your perception of failure. There is no failure. There's only feedback. Yes, Yvonne.
Wow. I've been taking so many notes as we were going along.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
normally I would do a little summary, but I don't need to do that because you just did that beautifully for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're
Thank you, Dr.
welcome.
Tranquille. That was awesome.
You're
And I
welcome.
mean that sincerely, not just a use of the word awesome. It was really, you changed, kind of like changed the mindset.
Yes.
There were so many points that you brought out, and it's on a level that we can all understand and get that picture in our minds of what success
Yes.
looks like, and the
Yes.
discipline and the faith, how both of
Yes.
those are involved. So
Yes.
before we wrap up, do you have any final words for us? I know you did a summary, but do you have any final words for us before we wrap up today?
Well, my final words to all listeners today is all the things I've spoken and I've mentioned in today's presentation are things that I'm working on myself. You know, it's one thing when you read about it in a book, but it's one thing when somebody can tell you from personal experience. And from personal experience, I'm telling you, you want to attain, all of us want to achieve success. You know, according to Abraham Maslow's theory of motivation, that's something that's innate within all of us. But what does success look like to you? What is it you really want to achieve in life? Some of you may already know what you want to achieve. Some of you probably are chasing someone else's goals. Some of you are unclear. Take the time to identify what you really want to achieve in life. And I want to encourage you today. This life you're given is a gift. And we ought to live a fulfilled life. We ought to live a meaningful life. And it's possible. But it's only possible when you're living it on a definition that is relevant to you, and not like the social comparison theory says, based on what society you're comparing yourself to someone else out there, or you're comparing yourself to what society so-called expects. And then you find yourself chasing things, and then 10 years from now, perhaps you have the 6-figure business, but you've lost your marriage, your kids are not talking with you. What does success really looks like to you? And that's the one essential thing out of this presentation I want to leave with our listeners right now. Take some time and ponder upon it so that you can have a holistic approach to success and live a life that has meaning to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Yvonne.
so before a final wrap up, you do have an offer for our viewers today and listeners today. Would you share that with us, please?
Yes, I'll be happy to. So the offer I have is called the Peak Living with Mel Starter Success Bundle. In this bundle, you'll get a self-confidence ebook. So when you read it, you will see some great tips in there to help boost your confidence. If you struggle with confidence, or if you don't even struggle with it, but I'm sure you can find something that's useful and valuable in there. There's a SMART goals checklist to guide you in your goal setting. And finally, I've inserted the first 2 chapters of my soon-to-be released book, Uncrushed. Is the unedited version, but I'm sure you'll be able to get great value from those first 2 chapters, because it's a simple 3-step process that I'll be talking about to break a negative mindset and achieve any goal in life. And it's all coming from my personal experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm sure everyone looks forward to that. And for those who may have already claimed it when they registered, we encourage you to take some time to read it. Melissa has given us a lot to think about, and she's also shared some pointers that we can reflect on. Now, please share with us, finally, how we can get in touch with you if we want to get more information from you.
Yes, so if you want to get in touch with me, my website is www.peaklivingwithmel.com. You can also hop over to Facebook and just type in Peak Living with Mel, and you will see my Facebook page pop up. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Melissa Tranquille, thank you so very much. This has been a wonderful session, and I know that every one of us who is watching this, we're leaving feeling more empowered.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.